That is my understanding as of this morning.
Is that for every, uh, tool, or is it just the specific treatment you have on the screen?
No, these are just the big three, so they're the ones that fit on the slide. But that would be for every tool that I'm aware of. If you are on a free plan and then you convert to a paid plan, they don't retroactively go back and delete any of the data that's already in there because they have already been used for training. Now, I will say that it is a mayhap. So it's not a guarantee, but that's my understanding that that's not the case. But David, yeah.
I actually had a question. I'll be honest that I have never quite understood, there's the, say that the data may be used to train a model or it may be potentially viewed by humans at different companies. But to train the model part is where I've never quite understood. Have there been concrete cases of someone having, I've done some conversation with AI. It was used to train a model. Someone did a search around that company or who knows what, and proprietary information was discovered in that way. Like, is that the risk that there's a potential that that information, the model now knowing about it, if someone asks about something related to that, it could surface? Is that the end result we're trying to avoid?
I don't have a specific example where it's been targeted to a specific organization, but because it's also happening at scale. But if a lot of organizations are having conversations and the model is trained on context, then all of that information starts to kind of show up. I had a conversation, Trish, right? We had a conversation yesterday a little bit about vulnerable populations data. And the fact that if we include a lot of information in free plans that the model gets trained on about demographics, vulnerable populations, information here and there, then as people are using chat or they're searching for certain things, it will start to rise. And that information will help inform the answers that are happening within the model itself. It might not be targeted specifically to this came from your organization, unless it's a public document that you put out there that's citing. But for the behind the scenes training, it's more of a scalable collective of here's how the idea is coming about, if that makes sense.
I did a little bit of research on that too, Nick, because I was curious for my own use, but somebody else asked me the question.
Yeah.
But the answer I got, and take this with a grain of salt, is that it trains for context.
Yeah.
It doesn't train for data because the data that is provided by us can be wrong. So the data that the LLM uses is the data that's provided by the core model. It's not altering its core model data when we provide our company data, but it is training on the context.
Yeah.
Now,
It
I
wants
don't
to
know
predict state too. That philosophy holds across like the training, right? It wants to predict state. So if it sees 1,000 sources say that, hey, if these are my symptoms, this is usually what's going on, then it's probably going to say like, oh, that's probably the most likely thing. So we're going to start to generate that as an answer. Does that kind of answer your question?
I guess what is the eventual risk to an organization sharing that information with the LLMs? They're like concretely that, it's not best idea to be having this thing starting to get your information. Then you lose control over where it might go, how it might be.
Where it might go, how it might be used. I don't have a specific example for like an organization that got specifically targeted or had privacy like information leaked in a way that affected them negatively. But I also don't want anyone in this room to be first.
Are there other aspects, I guess, because this is the training use for the privacy.
Yeah.
Like that's the toggle that we have available to us.
Yeah.
Are there other components of privacy that are a concern or to be aware of? And I don't really think of this business model, but I think of people using AI for like therapy and they're just for, the relationships and they're putting all of their deepest secrets out. And so there's a training component of that for privacy, but there's also other components that you can leave yourself. But we don't have like super awesome privacy laws.
Right.
Yeah. Are there other areas of privacy concern that are protected by any of these models?
The one that the biggest privacy concern that I have and that I think is actually helpful to anchor the conversation in is that it's the same as the biggest privacy risks and data risks that you have right now, which is people more than the software, right? And that kind of expands us to the circle two, like you and the team. The important thing to understand is that like any other software that you have right now, shared credentials equals shared visibility. So if Jay and I are on the same staff and we are using the same paid chat GPT plan so that we can both collaborate to get work done and save a few bucks, which makes sense. But Jay has access to sensitive information that I should not have access to. When he goes in and he uses chat GPT and he puts in sensitive data and uses it to do some sort of task, if I go in there and I log in and the same login, I can see all of that. It's in the conversations. I can ask chat like, hey, what did we talk about yesterday? If I know that Jay was in there yesterday, and chat will be like, this is what we talked about yesterday, because I'm logged in. We have the same login. It's the same as the same people that you have right now, you trust with the keys to your CRM, logging into your MailChimp, logging into your donor database, any of those things, the password document that you have of your login and credentials and your password, whoever it is that you trust with that, that is a privacy decision. Those are people that you said, I trust you to be able to log in and look at what's behind the scenes in Salesforce. Like I'm trusting you personally with that, or it's outlined within the data policy of the employee handbook and the expectations that we have for you to conduct yourself professionally, right? I think that the biggest risk for AI currently is in us not enforcing those same considerations when it comes to how we handle access to information that's within AI accounts. So the same people that you trust with logging into your Salesforce account, if you intend to trust those same people to use AI, then that's a good starting point for the conversation of, oh, does this person need their own page? Because I don't want what they're working on to be accessible to somebody else, right? Or do they not need that? Or, where's that kind of line? And that's what we shift from what we know to what might be a good fit for you. Yeah. Nope. Yeah, sorry.
It's a whole line of us. Thinking about this also in terms of files. So if you have an AI model that's sitting on top of Google Drive or Microsoft like Copilot, anything that can access, that you give access to your staff, that means that they can now access. So if you've got salary information, I mean, all of that type of stuff needs to be protected. And I know my company's just going through this right now where there's a whole change of how you access folders and things. So thinking of your file structure is just as important. And then what your staff puts into the AI model, the same things that we're applying on that last screen also apply. If they're putting in sensitive information in an unpaid plan, that also affects your organization. So having some sort of a documented, like we have it as part of our code of conduct is we don't use unpaid models. We have a secure model to ask work questions for that purpose. So something else that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. These two and then.
The difference in the example you gave is with a software program, we have controls. We have hierarchy that we set up. They have access to, this much.
Admin, editor.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is that something that is a consideration in the business model for AI? And like you will know what AI is going to be doing in the next 6 months.
Yeah, totally. No. I would imagine so, especially with some of the team accounts. The harder thing and where like the strength of AI and being different than software is that you have this kind of this open source capacity to connect it to a bunch of different things. And what she's talking about really alludes to this is that one of the strengths, and Brad's going to come up and share a little bit about his perspective so that you can hear from somebody who's navigated this from like with his DD hat on. But one of the strengths is in getting away from like traditional big box software. It's like sometimes I need it to do things that are more custom. And I want it to be able to connect this folder with this one. Like I finally want the ability to have like the donor information from this and like my contact details from MailChimp come together so I can like segment an email to people that I need to email. And that's a strength. But the part where it gets weird for like the hierarchy of admin and user is once those things are hooked up, how do you manage who has that, who doesn't? And the best safeguard against that right now is that mostly those happen within local folders, or that you need to understand whose paid account is connected to what things. The most similar and like familiar analogy that I can draw from this is when you give somebody access to like Google Drive. And if you have like your folders or set up in Google Drive or Google Sheets where you have some sensitive data, there are certain people that you can give access to and say, hey, you can go in here and look at all the folders and files and stuff. There are other people that just aren't going to get those permissions. The volunteer who signed up yesterday is not going to be handed the admin access to Google Drive, right? And so that's the same kind of conversation. And it's a reframe because I think a lot of people, our first instinct with privacy for AI is to like think about the tech. And I think the conversation point that gets missed is we got to still start with the people the same way that we do it now, because that's where I think the biggest risks are, the biggest gaps. Yes, sir.
Do they at this point, or can they in the future sell the information to third party vendors? So get a ton of advertising whenever you,
They don't now. They're highly incentivized to do it
I think,
based off of everything we've seen over the last 10, 15 years about how information or data goes. Anthropic with Claude, I don't know. And these are all, by the way, great questions for AI. I don't know Gemini's stance on this. If there's any room hosts specifically who do or have seen it recently, like let me know. I know that Anthropic has been the most public about saying they're committed to not doing that. And chat is hemorrhaging money at an exponential rate that is incentivizing them to explore doing it. But nobody knows. And they could say, we're not doing that this month, and 6 months from now. Yes.
Just kind of the other side of that is the legal framework seems to be ambiguous at this time. It's not something that I follow closely, but that I've read about. Whereas in search, it's been around long enough that there are some definitions around that,
Yeah.
particularly as it relates to subpoena powers. That does not apply currently to anything in chat. So that has not been defined. It's probably going to be tested in court at some point. But right now, it's just kind of sitting out there. So that's, I think, something important from an organizational point of view.
Yeah.
The other thing to keep in mind too, as always, if you were going to, for those individuals that may be using AI for nefarious purposes, that plan a terrorism act or something like that, that input will get diverted to human intervention. So, which is a good thing. But it's also important to remember there are mechanisms that what you're putting in can get out, can be reviewed by human beings.
So can I give a little plug on that for people that aren't aware, because we're in California, we have the California Privacy Protection Agency.
Mhm.
So they're constantly coming out right now with all kinds of rules. They're in the rule building process, and they
Yeah.
started with third-party data brokers. So everyone should be signing up for Cal Privacy, drop, get your data broker stuff taken out. But it's a good place to keep an eye out because I'm pretty sure California's on the forefront of privacy for the country. And so if there's a chance, you should be monitoring what CPPA is doing for data privacy. Because it's all we got.
It's a good next step. Yeah. Yes. Good.
I have one. So for the companies that use the paid version, do we know if AI like kind of like sorts the data or the information to like, I don't know, information versus just random, like the slop or whatever you called it? And are they vulnerable to being hacked, or like how vulnerable?
Good conversation for the next circle here. Great job. Good work. This is more of the conversation of like somebody that I don't know is a stranger going to hack in and leverage the information that's in here, which is part of your question. The important takeaway here is that the real vulnerabilities are the same as the ones that you have right now with any kind of software that you're using. There is not something externally unique about AI that makes it different or necessarily more hackable than any other existing database or cloud service that you're uploading information to. There are The big risk that's here from like an external is third-party connectors that I would highlight. It is super fun and helpful to start getting into like connecting your Claude or chat account to your email, to Drive, to being able to connect it to these sources so that you can do work a little bit faster, a little bit more efficiently. But it's something that you need to be mindful of, that when you connect your LLM to a third-party connector, there's information that changes hands. Because in order for, if you want chat to help tell you, to like read, you got back from vacation and you're like, I need to catch up on my emails quick. I want you to tell me like the top 5 that really need my attention. And you want it to read your inbox to help you do that. Great. That's a great use case for personal productivity. But Claude has access now to your inbox, and there's information in order for that task to be done that has to go from one place to the other. And so those two things are talking to each other now, and now there's access. So now you give somebody your login to get into Claude, and guess what? They also have access to your email. Right? That's why I like starting a conversation from the perspective of who has access and paid accounts, because the real vulnerabilities there are your weak passwords or shared credentials or things that you're trying to safeguard against already today that are familiar, are very applicable to the way that you're managing AI security and data privacy risks. So you're probably already work with or familiar with what you need to be doing already. It just looks a little bit different. It's not something that's completely foreign. It uses the same encryption as like when you're doing online banking, which is great, but you're not going to be working on your online banking connected to public Wi-Fi in a Starbucks. Right? That's not where you're going to open up your laptop and decide to do your taxes. Right? So I would also encourage you not to sit down and do that same thing. Open up an LLM that's connected to different accounts or sensitive information. Start typing away. Those are where we get more of the inherent like risks of something that could be occurring. I also haven't heard at this time, I don't know if Brad has, I try to stay out of some doom and gloom scrolling, but I have not heard of like a personal, like an actual personal account being hacked for stuff like versus usually it's larger databases. I'm sure everyone in this room has probably gotten a letter in the mail in the last 12 months, probably once or twice, of you're getting a check for $12 because 8 years ago. Here and wait for your $12 check. Did you have anyone?
Yeah, so, if you had an app made by one of these and then posted it on your server, or private server,
Okay, yeah, you get like a.
and you're outside of the world stuff because it's within your private server firewalls and everything else.
Like a local server or like a virtual private server?
Well, I guess, so there's two things, right? One would be cloud, but also the other would be like my own server.
Yeah, so if you have a local server, like it's in the building, okay?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the protections for having like your localized, if your information's all local, then it's definitely a higher level of security that you have for.
So would that preclude anybody accessing that information? Like you gave the email, right? So if I have that app running on my local server.
Yeah.
And then it accesses my email, which is an exchange, right?
Yeah.
But then it wouldn't have access to the outside world. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because if you leave the building, it starts to get difficult for even you to access your own app because it's on the local server, right? Because it's within the building. Right. So yeah, local permissions are great. Although like, and there are local, for anyone who's like dev oriented, there are local based LLMs that you can use too, that don't send any of that content. They're clunky, and they can be difficult. You need to be technically minded in order to understand how to set up something like Llama or any one of the other like local based LLMs. Great questions. And if you're in a large organization that has internal servers, then it's certainly something that you can explore. Probably outside the deck, the one-on-one. It's 401. It's 401. Graham, giving Brad more ideas. That's all he needed was more ideas. Speaking of Brad, actually, I think it's before we do the Oh, this is just like a quick, like, if you need a takeaway elevator pitch for like the next board conversation. This is one that you can take kind of a riff on. It's a good place to start the conversation. You're using paid plans, explicit data protection terms. Those explicit data protection terms are in the terms of service of any LLM that you're using. They do have them. So if you're on a paid plan for Claude, if you're on a paid plan for chat, if you're on a team or enterprise plan, first of all, please make sure that you are getting any discount that you're eligible for as a nonprofit, because as of February this year, they all have them. You can cite the terms of service because they are still responsible. The same way that you hand over your data to Salesforce, like Salesforce has terms of service where they own some responsibility for protecting your data. You have your part of it, which is don't give people your password login. But they have their terms of service for their side of the line. All of the LLMs do too. It's all in the terms of service. So that's what you're citing with explicit data protection terms. If you're on a paid plan, those exist. You can cite them. We've added AI usage to our staff data privacy policy. If you don't have that, you can work on it in a few minutes. And we're using the technology responsibly. There's Dash, so you know that Claude helping. Our organization. And I think that that's the big takeaway framing is it's not uniquely, it's a completely separate thing that you need to understand is that you need to take your current data practices that are healthy and good, and you need to integrate the conversation about AI into those practices.
Yes, I was just thinking of something else. We've been talking a lot about Claude and ChatGPT, but more and more of the software that we're using is gonna have AI in it. And there's a difference between the AI where you can just ask questions about your data in the product, but there's another where it can agentically do things. But I think it's also important to be checking those terms, especially around a lot of the smaller apps, so they may not have the data security around training on your data. It's worth looking at some of the terms if you start seeing AI pop up in those products as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's new.
yeah,
And it's changing. So it's difficult to plant our flag in any which direction. Jay and I were talking just before this about how the traditional education models around AI, like they don't really exist yet because it's so difficult. Like I don't know of a single bachelor's AI program in the country right now. You can do development still because we understand development. But you can't get a degree in AI yet. You can do a lot of great coursework on machine learning, but it's new. We don't know that what we can teach you today is going to.
yeah, I think of like I'm an accountant, so we talk a lot about protecting cash, right? Like you think of how hard you use to protect who signs a check, who can. I think we need to think about data the same way. I think we need to protect it, especially for the people that we're serving. So all of this, I imagine in the next few years, we're gonna have internal controls around AI usage the way we do our apps. Because it's so powerful. I mean, it's why Dario from Claude said, I'm not gonna give surveillance data because it now makes what was already there so much more accessible.
Yeah. Okay. Let's take a few minutes to do some of these things. Is that okay? This is a screenshot from anyone who has a paid Claude account. Under your settings, here's some toggles that you want to look at. It says it right here. Help improve Claude. Allow the use of your chats and coding sessions to train and improve Anthropic AI models. You can click here for any direct terms of service. You also can go ahead and click here to turn it off. So for anyone who's on a paid Claude account, if you click in the bottom left in your name and you click settings, you will see privacy. That's where you want to go. And then you can go ahead and find these toggles. Okay, my Claude people good?
Why would you not want them to know your location? Isn't that helpful?
I actually think that started off. Or maybe past Nick turned it off and I don't remember why.
So what is your recommendation for what the toggles mean for those?
I recommend turning this one off. This one's going to be personal preference. I don't personally, I think I haven't experienced any benefit to the work that I'm doing for it to know my location.
You're asking it to give you directions or restaurant locations or something like that, it'll prompt you to turn it on. But I just leave it off by default.
But yeah. Yeah, I already know my favorite sushi spots. This one is for chat. I don't have screenshot for Gemini, but the room host can come around and help you. This one, again, on the paid plan, you can see improve the model for everyone. They use natural language. You can go ahead and turn that off. I do have my chat location off, so maybe that's where I hit my restaurant recommendations. You can also remove browser data in here, and also under these for like storage or for like history, you can like archive things. You can also delete all the chat you've ever had. So push that button when you're confident in doing that, but those options do exist. So if you work on a project with sensitive data and that project is done, and you don't think you need access to those chats anymore, and you just want to remove them from your cache altogether, you do have the opportunity to do that in the LLMs as well. Okay, and if we leave this up for a couple minutes, so that people can find the right buttons. Who are my group hosts again? Are you guys all standing? Sweet. Room hosts would go around and help people make sure that they get the right toggles, especially if you're on like Gemini or use Copilot down on here. It's under settings if you're on a paid account. If you have this done already, I think the next best thing is to enter in some context, goal, and specifics. As an example, to just generate a starting point for an AI policy for you to add to your current data privacy policy. Okay, so that way you guys can have that done. Is that good? Take like 5 or 6 minutes, and then I'm gonna have Brad come up and just kind of wrap up the conversation about privacy with a little bit about how he's been using AI as an executive director to shape some like government development apps and things like that. All right, 3 minutes. I just have one. Oh, you did? Okay. It's okay. I look your bags. Okay. Turn on the setting. You get different. Stop. We got dance party. No. Just play ball. See. You can't say what's my profit. Yeah, I literally just did it. You can say, okay, like you said.
So I can make better.
Oh, there, what? Yeah. This not minutes, maybe.
That's my.
Okay, yeah.
Like, I did try to, like, kind of like. But,
Oh, that you're not. So that's an impact. I'll remind him about that. I forgot it too when he was talking about it. And several of them, I think PDD has something like that. I'm not sure about Gemini, but Gemini probably does. I don't use it much. I don't know for the nonprofit doing. I'm not sure how they do that. All right,
Like
cool.
that.
Yeah, think about it too.
Like,
I just did that. I'm sorry. Oh, that's what.
I'm more.
Oh, okay.
What did that?
Oh, no. Yeah. Something like. Yeah. I'm here. You have Oh, like.
But I of course. I have a small.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, I will say there's never a perfect answer.
It's all in the same.
Oh, you just eat it. I don't. Good to go. It's probably taking your dating some.
That's,
Oh, okay, cool. See.
Oh, that's what it was.
So Nick asked me to come up and just share a firsthand perspective. So I don't know, I run this, but I also am the founder and CEO of the Orangeville Barrow Community Foundation and the Food Bank, and we have homeless outreach program and big day of service and 8 or 9 different programs within that organization. So I lead that with the other half of my time. And so in that context, I thought I'd share like how we're thinking about AI and data privacy. One theme that Nick shared is, while the AI is unique, but data privacy has been around for a long time. We're just sort of hiding the conversation. If you think about Salesforce or GiveButter or GiveSmart or whatever tool, Google, Gmail, Google Sheets, Excel, any data we have, texting documents back and forth, it's all going through the cloud, right? So this is semi-unique, but it's not really that unique. This is just it's the same framework, same conversation. So in one key is looking at the data privacy policy of whatever software you're using, not just the OpenAIs and the Claude of the world, but all of the fundraising software you're using, Stripe, QuickBooks, obviously enterprise tech's gonna, in theory, rise to a certain level of data privacy where you're using like a Salesforce or QuickBooks, you're just gonna get a certain level. Versus like a homegrown, some guy in their backyard built a thing type of product, right? Now I'm the guy that's building the thing. So we're right? Literally in the garage building. But what's cool about the strategy we're taking is we're sort of like bringing our data into our own ecosystem. So we're designing software with AI using a tool called Replit, which we'll share more on in 301. Which is essentially just using Claude code in the back end with a front end called Replit, REPLIT. And then that AI is actually building the software, but the database is still living in the cloud, and it's a database that we own. So it's not sitting on a Salesforce server or a GiveButter server. It's our own database that we have in a secure data center that's encrypted, it's SSL, it has user permissions, So while I'm no expert in this, my take on it is that that maybe is more secure because nobody else has access to it. No other enterprise vendor has access to our data. And so we're controlling our own data in that way. So, and we're spending $20,000 to $30,000 a year on our CRMs and all of our tech, volunteer management system, donor management system, project management, event management, and we've built all those things out. So our tech cost is virtually zero. It's not like hundreds of dollars a year that would money. So we're saving a lot of money on top of having full control of our data and how we view it. So I wanted to just show you just a little demo of our CRM that we're working on. We haven't rolled it out yet, but this is our new CRM that we vibe coded. So essentially, just to build this was a prompt like in Claude that says, I want a dashboard screen that gives me a graph showing my donation trends and summary, imagine a prompt like that, and then that's what popped up. So it's pretty cool.
An Excel spreadsheet of your donors.
So for the data side, I took data out of our old CRM and basically imported that in through import tool that Vibe code here. And then there's also some cool like donor intelligence tools to create this like really cool dashboard. It was literally just a couple prompts that said I want a donor intelligence tool that maps out my risks and donors that maybe need a phone call or an outreach tool. So I mainly want to show you this so say that we own our own data and now we have full control over how we access it. If we want to have a new chart or graph or report or summary or whatever, we can just go and Vibe code it using the tools. And then we have full control of that data. So anyway, that was pretty much it. Nick, you can come on back in if you want. First though, are there any, there's a lot, but any questions about how we're thinking about data?
So have you guys essentially gotten rid of like your Salesforce or other CRM completely?
Yeah. Yeah, so what we're doing here is we're hooking into Stripe directly. So credit card processing through Stripe, which is an enterprise vendor. That's one place that you don't want to build your own. It's not really feasible to build like that credit card transaction processing. We're managing our own credit card transactions, and we just built a solution through Stripe's secure interface. Now all donations are flowing through there. It shows up in our CRM. Donation transactions are synced to the donor. Get donor histories, like all the things you get in your CRM. And because our volunteer management is tied into that, we also have volunteer record, volunteer history, all in the same box. So yeah, what are the other questions?
So you said that if you want like a new report that you just work with, you like go back in and prompt for a new report. How user friendly is that for if you have like turnover in your development team or a new volunteer coordinator coming in? Is that something that would be intimidating to brand new people, or is that pretty easy to jump into?
Yeah, I mean, so it's very easy. Another strategy is you can, instead of going into the Vibe coding app builder, you can actually build a report engine that actually quickly report. Just tell the Vibe coding engine, hey, build me a new report engine. You can click a new report and design it how you want.
Cool.
And you literally prompt it like with natural language like that, and it will design a report writer tool.
I just did that for one of our SVP, and we had dynamic reporting like Brad was talking about, where it was more hard coded reporting that was Vibe coded. And then instead of that, I just said, hey, you have all the data and all the tables, make it all accessible through the reporting engine and make it a report builder and allow users to save their own reports and allow admins to save them assistant reports and just done.
Why are we using other softwares?
This
That's awesome.
is a new moment for
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. So this is my pitch for video one.
I was gonna ask this offline, but there might be other groups here that this could benefit. So you and I know, and Amanda, we have to work with this thing called Oasis.
Yeah.
Which is, in my opinion.
I don't know Oasis. And want to know why is I'm talking with Sacramento Food Bank about
I was
building a new
okay.
Oasis.
And that's that. But all to say is that some of us are working with software that You're required to use that's outside of our control, right? So,
Totally, and actually, yeah, a long conversation there, and we could double click on it at the break, but, there is a lot going on behind the scenes with that. No, yeah. So these are, so again, just big picture for why SPP is doing this work around capacity building, because all those inefficiencies that we all experience in our day to day with systems that don't talk together or reports that I have to pull that just take hours and it's just like, why do I have to do this? That's solvable now, which is so cool. It's solvable with this new AI frontier. So, any other questions on data security and privacy?
No, not so much. It was more, how long did it take you guys to build that?
This,
Still
I'm still working on it. This is pretty robust.
Okay.
Cool. But like the initial one is like an hour, like the initial like MVP. Like you can put it in one prompt and get something usable quickly. I mean, literally, if you just again plug, go to Replit, it's free. Put in like build me a quick CRM, see what it does. I mean, just do it, see what happens. You'll be
Go to what? What what acronym?
Oh, yeah. REPLIT. There's a lot of these people in there.
customer relationship.
Oh, CRM, sorry. Customer
No,
relationship. Oh.
CRM, I got.
Hi, I talked to Nick about this yesterday. I got like a good answer, but I wanted your
Yeah.
feedback. So I work for a conservation organization, so we get a lot of negative feedback about AI.
Totally.
And so like I'm here, I'm definitely interested in how we as a small nonprofit can use it.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if you guys are very invested in like heavily using it. Have you heard that? And I guess what are you saying or what are your feelings?
Yeah, we just, you might have seen some of you participate in our state of AI report that we just did. And so one of the questions was, why are you or not using AI? There's a poll of nonprofits that did respondents. And there was a theme around environmental impact and, just other concerns related to AI's negative impact on the world. And so one of our goals is to actually produce a report, do some data and research to help at least provide some information that we can all use to make those decisions. I think we're all learning, and there's tons of spin around this, right? All the big LLMs, frontier models are all trying to tell others one story, and others tell a certain story. China's involved, and there's a lot. So trying to find the facts, right? So that's my answer. We're hoping to pull some data together this year, but I don't know.
Could you share a little bit more about what you were saying about bringing data into your safe environment? I'm
Yeah.
really interested in that.
Yeah. So we're hosting our database in a secure server, like an AWS secure server. We actually use Neon, but there's Supabase, Neon, AWS. They're all like in the cloud, secure database storage solutions, and they have their own privacy policies and data policies. And so again, it's not like on our computers, it's not in our infrastructure, like you were saying, right? It's not on our desktop, which has its own negative security concerns, right? But it's in cloud. It's just not accessible by anybody but us, right? We have the only access. A third-party vendor can't get in unless we grant access to that data set. All of our donor, our customer information, all is in this database. It has its own security concerns too. Like, there's no perfect situation. It just feels like we have more control.
I just have to say, like, seeing all of the tech stack that I see nonprofits face, like, I think what you're doing is, it's really big. It's not just for Sacramento, but I feel like businesses and nonprofits, like, if you could get to this model, I think there's a lot of affordability, security. I think the customization around exactly what you need.
Yeah.
I think this is the future. It's really exciting.
Thanks for the validation. Yeah, let's just take one more, Bill, I think.
So I was just gonna make a comment about some of the data stuff you're talking about, like AWS.
Yeah.
All of those service providers provide a level of BAA, which is a business association agreement, right? Which covers HIPAA and drug trafficking, all those kind of things. So It's important if you have any of that kind of requirement, that the services that you're using are supported by that agreement type. And so, yeah, AWS is, Supabase is, sometimes they're at a different pay level, at a different tier of cost. But it's well worth it because it is exactly what Brad said, protect.
So actually, like it erases all of those challenges of having to check every single one of those tech stacks and their security. You're bringing it in and having control of it.
All right, Nick, you're on music.
Okay, I think now would be time for a break.
Oh, that's awesome. You get this break.
What I will say is, I think since there's such a wide spectrum, like, of us in the room and like our organization side and size and our goals and what we're working towards, I think that there's a notable takeaway for everybody in the room, because you either are in a position of, oh, I think that there's some tech stack things that we can talk about, or some software that maybe we can reimagine and have a conversation about, because if we remove a bill that's a couple $100 a month from our books, like it's like signing a new major donor on the year. So like that's a worthy conversation. Or if you're still like, I am in a 101 class because I'm like just learning, like I want to get better at what we talked about yesterday. Great. But I love how like Brad can cast the vision to plant these seeds so that when you're ready, you know that there's other people in the room, or you know how to email one of us, because I like have an unlimited capacity for coffee meetings. So in coffee students on the table, like to talk about these things and like what might be the fit, because it's not all the right fit right now and you can't do all of it right now. But just to know that we're having a conversation, that there's people that are in the same boat as you, or to think about what's possible for you moving forward when that problem does come up. I just love that you guys are like, it's good for us to continue that conversation and have those seeds planted to know where we can go. So but that was a lot of cognitive load too. So let's take a break. Let's do Brad, how many after?
Like maybe 18, whatever, but then 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's great. So let's just do 10, 15, and then we'll rock and roll with the rest of it.
Great.
Let's put it out.
The